The show is about you, your business, your family, and your life, and the guests come on to tell us about their business, family, and life. I am Mitchell Chadrow, your host, and this is the Listen Up Show. Get the show notes back at mitchellchadrow.com/show072. Sign up at my website, mitchellchadrow.com/sign-up for the latest podcast articles and special resource guides, only for those listeners who sign up back at my website, mitchellchadrow.com/sign-up. Today's entrepreneur, our guest, Teresa Leno, founder and owner, FreshMerge, Fresh Finance. So if you're ready to listen up, Teresa, are you ready to tell us your story?
I definitely am.
Okay, well, that's awesome. Let's get to it. Instead of me introducing you, Teresa, why not tell us in 1 minute, who is Teresa Leno?
Well, I am an entrepreneur, which is interesting for a female because I'm also in the tech industry, and I come out of the finance industry. I'm a mother, and I guess very close with my family.
You're the founder and owner of FreshMerge and Fresh Finance. Can you tell everybody in the Listen Up audience exactly what those two entities are?
Sure. Well, Fresh Finance is basically the parent company, which started out as a content company, and our primary product at the time was producing content in the form of a digital newsletter that went out to investors from broker-dealer firms or from advisors themselves. And over time, it kind of evolved into us creating a licensed software product, which is a FreshMerge product. And that is currently being used in the financial services industry. However, we do have other groups that are looking at it, real estate, basically healthcare, some healthcare companies as well, which they're looking at it for not only newsletter capability to go out to clients that's branded for the sales team member, but also because of social media posting, where our software allows all that to be created at the corporate level and then shared among sales team members or among employees, so that the company is always giving their team something to post out there to kind of, I guess guide, if you will, basically the look of the company and what is being put out there in the world about the company.
Well, we certainly are going to delve in a little bit about the software and about how you actually got involved with the financial services industry and how you're actually taking this same software to other industries. But let's first talk a little bit about what your first job or the first business that you sort of got involved with before you even became an entrepreneur, before you even started your own company.
Okay, that's interesting. Way back, I guess it started out, the common high school jobs, whether it's babysitting or food service or whatever it may be. And interestingly, I thought I was going to be an attorney. Started out at a pre-law program and quickly realized that just wasn't my thing. And I was more of a people person, so I thought, hey, teaching, education, wanted to be a teacher, so I went that route and did that about 4 years, and through relocation to a different part of the country, found myself not easily able to find a teaching job and had a young child at the time and had problems finding daycare, even to go to work and find daycare. So my first entrepreneurial gig, I guess if you'd call it that, was I actually wrote a business plan for a child care center and pitched it to a healthcare corporation in Minneapolis, and they decided to hire me to get it in place. So we had a child care center based in a nursing home, and it was part of a philosophy called the Eden Alternative, where they want to bring in children, pets, and plants into the environment because they know that it makes longevity, people happier in that environment, especially in nursing home care. So that was that business, and I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur.
That's really fascinating how you went from doing that and to where you are today. And it's also really interesting as well that when we talk about what your actual first job is versus, let's say, what actually was the first job that you actually dreamed about?
The first job I dreamed about was actually being an attorney. However, that's not the way it went. And, there again, it was representing, communicating. The financial services one kind of came around in a weird way as well. After the daycare center gig, at the time of the daycare center gig, I kind of gotten involved with basically another little offset business and not related really to what I am doing now. But that was a gift basket company with online ordering, a little bit of technology maybe involved there. Basically gifting company, and one of our biggest clients at the time was Microsoft, and we found ourselves, trying to market, I guess, via newsletter or on the media or whatever it may be. There wasn't a lot of social media back then. And from there, I went on to brokerage, which is interesting, but I went into the commodity brokerage area and got that job through a headhunter. And, they were looking more for a sales type person that's, well organized and understood products and that type of stuff. So that was that business. And then from there, I decided, hey, the stock market's kind of an interesting thing, and I'm dealing with, food markets, commodity markets, and so that was the next challenge was coming aboard with a financial company and getting my licenses and going that route, which led me to where I'm at today, and that was during the meltdown. Not a lot of communication going out to the general public other than what they were seeing on TV. A lot of negative press, and a lot of things happened that maybe could have been avoided. I mean, you can't change economic cycle in that, but I think the way people reacted to what they were hearing, and a lot of them were making decisions without the correct knowledge. So that's how I got involved in this was, what are we communicating to our clients, and how are we educating them so that they can make their own educational decisions on what they're doing. So that's where finance came.
Yeah, and I also see here that you got your license at J.P. Morgan Chase, and you also were a financial advisor at AIG Retirement Services, and so obviously you had a lot of different experiences with various different types of financial services companies. How did your philosophy of work change over time? I mean, obviously going from one company to another, you probably sort of changed your viewpoint or how you were viewing work generally.
I did. At the beginning, it was an insurance company, and they were all about, insurance products being used for, retirement purposes, and in some instances, that is appropriate, and some other ones it's not. But kind of being at their, I guess under them and being told that this is a fit for every person, and we know it's not. And so I think I tried to develop an open mind as I went forward, but to take the best out of every job situation and learn from it. That has helped me in what I do today. I write a lot of content for different financial companies, and that gets pushed out through our software. And I think having those experiences and that education and that prep has helped solidify what I do today. So, yeah, I've had a lot of good experiences, and I think I've learned from each one of them. But yes, it did definitely shape how I view the industry today.
You talked to us a little bit about what your dream job was, and then, of course, what your first job actually was. And so in that first job, if you can sort of think back to that, what was your intention, I guess, at that time going into that type of job environment?
I guess, for me it was, educating, communicating, helping people be successful. And that is something that I'm doing as well today, is helping advisors and financial companies grow their business, or any company for that matter, through communication. So I think that beginning job has led me to where I'm at today. Most definitely.
Well, it's very interesting. I heard you use a very important word, and a word that is obviously defined quite differently from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, and a lot of our guests sort of view it quite differently. So let me just ask you, how do you define success?
I think for me, success it's very much on a personal level. I don't necessarily gauge myself against someone else, because truly what I'm doing is my own story. I like to approach things as challenges. I surround myself with smart people. Always hire somebody that's smarter than you are to accomplish your goal. I know my weaknesses, and I look for strengths in other people that can help make the whole process whole. So I guess when I look at something, I don't necessarily, like I said, gauge myself against another entrepreneur, because I think we're all on our own paths. I will take a look at my software that I've created and gauge it against another one, or take a look at what that software does and go, hey, is that an integration that makes sense for us, or is that something that we can develop? And but always staying to the core of what our product is, because I think a person can get sidetracked when you start comparing yourself to everyone else, or when you try to be something to everybody. You have to kind of stick within within what you know and what your niche is.
You kind of alluded to the fact that in business there's quite a bit of challenge, and there's challenges that we face day to day and month to month and, of course, year to year. And so here on the Listen Up Show, we actually like to talk here on the show about what I refer to as a person's AQ, or adversity quotient. What has actually shaped your adversity quotient over time?
I guess adversity quotient. What things am I adverse to? I think for me, it has been a struggle as an entrepreneur, first and foremost to get funding, and that's a whole nother story. And I had to self-fund or, find a way to make it happen. Adversity quotient. It's hard to say, I guess. I'm not necessarily
in terms of, there's EQ, which is emotional intelligence, of course, and IQ, which of course is measuring one's, intelligence generally, and then AQ, how well somebody is tenacious and persistent, and stories that talk to us about, how you've been able to overcome those challenges and those hurdles, in your various businesses, and of course, the business that you're running today, FreshMerge and Fresh Finance.
I guess, for me, as far as AQ goes, I have a very strong determination, which sometimes is good and sometimes is bad. And I always have this kind of keep going mentality, but at the same time, I'm well aware, maybe we can say gut instinct. If something is not going to work, it's just simply not going to work. And I don't feel that there's a failure in failing. I think there's a failure if you don't learn from the failure. So I would say it's been mainly that gut instinct and the ability to keep going in spite of what may be difficult for you. As far as intellectual, I don't believe I have a ton of that. I think I have the ability to kind of see a vision, but I have to be able to explain my vision to other people on my team and have them go, yep, I think we can do that, or there's a way to do this, or there's a workaround. The other thing is that our software, the pieces that you see today have developed over time. We started out with a core product, and then from there we kept adding to it. We're constantly adding to it. So if you think you're going to develop software and you're going to be done with it, that's not the case. You're going to constantly be evolving it and trying to make it better, give it more features, whatever it may be. But I think that's kind of my intelligence, I guess, kind of maybe more in those two areas. Just the ability.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that I have a medium IQ and a medium EQ, but an extremely high AQ.
Yeah, I would say I have an extremely high AQ, definitely.
Our startup round is sponsored by TrustSmarter.com. Trusts and estates are not just for the rich and wealthy. Trust Smarter focuses on you, the consumer. Doesn't have to be the person setting up the trust. Could be a family member, a beneficiary, an individual trustee, or executor that needs help. There are numerous reasons why people need to set up a trust or need help settling an estate. Consumers needed a better way, an easier, more efficient, and less time-consuming manner available to them to find a corporate trustee or executor. Trust Smarter educates you with articles, free guides, and information on estate planning, using trusts, how to take control of your estate to business and personal asset. My listeners who sign up back at TrustSmarter.com mention Listen Up at the time they are asked, how did you hear about us? That's TrustSmarter.com. And when asked, how did you find out about us? Type in Listen Up. TrustSmarter is a virtual cash incorporated company. Okay, now back to the show. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in central North Dakota, up near the Canadian border, and left the state for a very short period of time. My dad was a college professor, and we went to California while he was on sabbatical. But the core of my upbringing was rural, upper Midwest, very close to Canada. Not necessarily where you'd think that my ideas would have all came from. I think having exposure to lots of things and working for companies where they always had cutting edge technology kind of, I guess, helped motivate me, or being able to use that technology and physically find the flaws in it just from a usability standpoint.
Yeah, you talked about the law and your dream job being law, and of course when I was 10 years old, that was my dream job, and I decided to go ahead and I went ahead and I did it. And so I went to law school out in the Midwest, and I really didn't think much about the Midwest until I was out there, and friends out there, and going to school there, and appreciating all the people there. And just recently I did some shows on Nebraska and the Panhandle in particular. So in North Dakota, what was it like growing up for you, your influences, for example, there in that area?
It was interesting. I think growing up there, I can say probably there was more time to do things, less, shopping malls or whatever it may be. It was not a metro area, so it was a lot of time with yourself. It was a lot of time with friends. Our fun tended to be sports related. I think I had a very good upbringing, and I think an upbringing where, there were values that were instilled in us. I think that for me, growing up there, but then having experiences in other parts of the country were very important for me. And also having exposure to different types of people, where I think growing up, we didn't have exposure to, a lot of diversity. And I think that maybe was a hindrance, but at the same time, I was always one of those people that wanted to know more, wanted to meet more people, wanted to find out more about, where they came from, what made them tick, and also listening to people and learning from them versus the opposite of trying to, put my print on them, or so to speak. So I think I've always tried to be somebody where I've gathered information from other people, or researching things, or trying to find out how things work. So just maybe wired a little bit differently.
Yeah, no, sure.
And I guess too, that part of the country too, and I don't mean any disrespect, but I didn't take a very traditional role that women typically do in that area of the country either.
What do you mean by that? What did you do?
Well, I think just the fact of starting businesses and selling them off, or, coming up with ideas, or it's just generally not always a path that somebody in my age group growing up in that part of the country would have taken. I mean, yes, there's tons of entrepreneurs out there, tons of them. But a lot of times they tended to be, like a male person in that role. And I think, along the way, meeting a lot of women that had professional careers that even though yes, financial advisors are entrepreneurs, they're 100% commissioned. It's, you either, I guess, what would you say, you swim or you sink type of attitude. And I think seeing a lot of that out there really helped me on my journey too, to just persevere and keep moving forward.
I heard you begin to talk about your father, and family is extremely important to me. How does your family keep you balanced?
Well, I think they tried to hold back the reins a little bit much, especially because having children of my own and being a single mother. I was divorced when my children were very young, and they're now, older, I guess, out of the house, or so to speak. But I think my dad especially tried to hold the reins back on me a little bit, that I wasn't following a traditional path, and I think that was hard on him. And I think he had a fear for me, where I was more the one that was just, considering things, but yet jumping in with both feet and giving it my all. Where I think, he would have been happy if I would have gone to that 9-to-5 job every day and had the consistent paycheck. But that would have been it. And I think I would have been bored, quite honestly, because I just don't work that way. I think people that can do that and are happy in that is great. I'm just not one of those people. But they did balance me out, and they did definitely help me with helping fund my company as well at the beginning. Definitely. For sure.
You mentioned earlier about surrounding yourself with smart people, and even people that even might be smarter than you. So beyond your family, can you tell us about the 5 people that you actually do surround yourself with or care the most about, and how they've been able to shape you the most?
Yeah, I guess, I have an aunt and uncle that I'm very close to, and just the value system and, the way that they're always, calling and, how's everything going with the business? How are you doing? And they were always 2 people that I could always call and tell them, when things were going great or when things weren't, going that well for me. I have another uncle that I'm not necessarily super close with, but yet, in my younger years, I definitely was, who has been very successful and started a company and, even had an association with General Electric and some of the technology that is out there today. And this is a man that, was rolling pizza dough out in the pizza shop, and, you know what I mean? It's like he persevered, as hard as it was, and it paid off over time. So that would be someone, that definitely I surround myself with. And then I've had other people in my life that are they're in the same industry as, the financial industry, and they know how hard it is, and they know what's out there as far as, technology goes. But those people that are they're always there to listen to you and to provide support. They don't basically give you their opinion unless you ask for it. But at the same time, I think it's just somebody that's there in your court to support you and to encourage you to keep going versus giving up.
Let's dive a little bit deeper into the actual software in terms of what is FreshMerge, which is how we actually started off our interview. And I've read quite a number of articles that you've written talking about, content marketing and graphic design and system management and working with financial services companies. Can you tell us a little bit about how you were able to sort of break into this industry and how you were able to basically develop your own software and build the company over time?
Yeah, I guess how it originally started was obviously when I was back at AIG, and, we were watching millions of dollars leave the stock market, and we all know the story there. And the AIG, my question was, what are we doing to communicate to our customers? What are we putting out there? From us advisors in the field, is there anything going out to our customers? How is this being handled? And their answer was, basically no. They're out there trying to, have their press releases and counteract what's happening on TV. And they failed to remember that there were people in the field that had relationships built with the clients. And I think today financial services forgets that at times, that the client first builds a relationship with the salesperson or the advisor out there before they build it with your brand. So that's a whole other topic of conversation. But basically I had sat down with a friend and came up with this idea on generating content out in the form of a newsletter that had my picture on it and my, contact information and the brand that would go out to my clients. And it was educational pieces that were non-biased to help them make better financial decisions themselves. And I pitched it to the team, a marketing team out of Chicago. I was an employee of one of their subsidiary companies, Valic it was called. And the marketing department loved the idea, great, whatever. And I kind of went on my merry way. And one of the questions that came up to them was, well, how are we going to find content? And I'm like, what do you mean, how are you going to find content? You're going to write content. And I found that there was kind of, people in marketing that didn't have the financial background to be creating the content at the time. And this was years ago. So I started writing and decided to continue being a financial advisor because I thought it was very important that my legitimacy that I'm writing this content is because I'm actually working, I actually have this knowledge base because I'm in the field. So I continued to do both things for a while and launched a little at that time it wasn't a corporation. It was just a little sole prop company and played around with it. Didn't really take it seriously. Didn't do much about it. Then I went on to work for JP Morgan Chase and signed my OBA, which is outside business activity form, and they knew what I was doing, had the website up, and we're going to trying to generate interest on purchasing my newsletter and sending it, to the advisors to send to compliance, whatever it may be. And everything seemed to be going great. And about 11 months into the JP Morgan job, my direct supervisor came to me and basically said, take that website down. You better figure out if you want to work for us or if you don't want to work for us.
Wow.
And I just remember looking at him thinking in my brain, not saying this out loud, but thinking about this, and he's saying words like selling away and making other advisors successful and on, and I'm taking it all in, and my brain is saying to myself, quietly, you're onto something here because you really made him mad. So using that.
And isn't that what we talk about when we talk about our AQ, our adversity quotient, in terms of how we're going to be tenacious and persistent and how we're going to sort of take those challenges and turn them around to our advantage? So listen up to everybody in the listen up audience, because
absolutely.
that sometimes we need certain things to test ourselves to see what our mettle is all about.
Absolutely. And I remember looking at him and saying, would you like me to pack up my desk stuff right now, or do you want me to finish out the month? And he said, why don't you finish out the month? And so I stayed till the end of December and then left and relocated 2,000 miles back to North Dakota from Arizona and dove in, went, okay, I'm coming back with no regular paycheck. I got this vision, and there's not much I can do about it now. So dig in. So that's what I did. But it was what was your plan then? I mean, how did you get your first clients? Yeah, my first big company came through a very successful advisor in the Scottsdale, Arizona area, and he knew what I was doing. Some of his advisors had, met me, heard about me, and I think one advisor actually tried to recruit me over to his firm and their broker dealer, and I basically said, that's not what I'm doing. This is actually what I'm doing and what my end goal is. I don't intend to, stay here forever. And he introduced me to the person that owned the firm, and it just happened to be the top producing DBA or office in the nation for this particular broker dealer. And he called up the broker dealer and said, I have somebody that you want to meet, that you need to meet. I like her product, and I think you need to get it on the vendor list for our broker dealer. So that was how my first big win happened, which happened about a week before my boss at JP Morgan walked in and gave me the ultimatum. So I had this idea at the time that, hey, I'm going to have this great big meeting with this broker dealer and things are going to go just peachy keen. And yes, I ended up getting my product in there on their platform. So their advisors are able to order from us, but also, competitors out there as well. However, I know that we have the win on the social media component of it. And we write new content every month, and we send it through compliance, and it's been going well.
Our fast pitch round is actually sponsored by Chadrow.net. That's CHADROW.net. Chadrow.net. Startups, bootstrappers, those who like to leverage resources are price smarter. When hiring an attorney, you apply these same smarter maxims. One of our business's greatest costs can be paying your lawyer high hourly rates. That's why my Listen Up business owner listeners are smarter and turn to Chadrow.net. More and more businesses will use Chadrow.net to start up their businesses from S to C corporations and LLCs and so much more. Be aware that even after your business is set up, running your business properly is critical to your success. Chadrow.net can help you with your contract reviews, lease agreement, changing tax laws, and any other type of legal issue or problem that needs a solution. All this takes time and effort, so you don't want these legal issues to take away from running your business. Your day-to-day main focus is growing your business, so Chadrow.net created a business legal service plan. Just listen up to what the business legal service plan provides you. All lawyers and CPA professionals in the directory are verified as in good standing with their respective state bar and state board of accountancy admitted. These lawyers and CPA professionals provide you and your business with legal and or tax advice. Get access to NDAs, lease agreements, and more. The best part, no more being nickel and dime for a 6-minute telephone call. No more dealing with billable hours because Chadrow.net is not a law firm. Instead, just pay one upfront, fully disclosed low fee. See for yourself now the business legal service plan at Chadrow.net. Special savings today for the listeners of my Listen Up show when you enter Mitchell at checkout. Don't forget, Chadrow.net. Mitchell at checkout. Chadrow.net. Get legal solutions for life. Chadrow.net. Enter Mitchell at checkout. Now, let's get back to it. That's an awesome story in terms of how you were able to sort of break in, get that first client, and build momentum. But as you know, there's a lot of fearful people out there who are sort of on that fence, who are working for someone else, who are wanting to sort of start something up, whether it be on the side or to take that leap. You didn't have a steady paycheck coming in. What were you able to do, and how long did it take you to sort of ramp up to where this thing was actually now profitable as a business?
I would say that the ramp up to the production of having the product was quite fast, and I had planned financially for that at the beginning. What I didn't plan for financially was how to market it and the costs involved in marketing the product. I did not have angel investor money, and that's, and a whole nother story there. I thought it out at the beginning and had people look at me basically saying, you got a stupid idea, women businesses just don't make it, on and on and on. And I kind of went, well, obviously I don't want to borrow money from you anyway. But I think having no debt at the time I started was imperative. Being focused and kind of that sink or swim, the sink or swim strategy or mindset. The one thing I didn't have to fall back on is I didn't have a partner that was out there working and bringing home a paycheck. It was just me. So I can tell you, just like we've heard from some of the Shark Tank people, yes, I've scrubbed toilets. Yes, I've tended bar. I don't have cable TV even today. I'm a Hulu fan, and I'm, yes, I'll say that. Internet voice over IP business lines, just trying to do it bare minimum. But at the same time, I haven't, I read these people that are getting all this angel investment money, like 15 million or whatever. And I'm sitting there going, what are you doing with all of it? I didn't buy a house. I basically sold a house, moved back to, North Dakota, and haven't had a new car in quite some time, but just bare bonesing it because you want to make it work. And if you do get funding, it's not to go buy yourself an expensive car or to, basically change your lifestyle for the better. But yeah, I think it takes a dedication, it takes a sacrifice.
And that was the word that I was just going to use, the sacrifice that it takes to sort of make it happen. So, now with the business, tell us a little bit more about the software. I mean, you create this software. I mean, when I think of software, I think of creating a code, and I think of developing that. I mean, where did those skills come in? Like, talk to us a little bit more about the process and the method in terms of what your technology, the behind the scenes, actually does.
Okay. Well, and first and foremost, I am not a coder. I nothing about it. I just have great people on my team that do know how to do that. So the product is an enterprise product, which means it's for large groups, large sales teams. Financial services is a great example where if you've got 2,500 advisors out there in the field, you're able to use this product for them, for their benefit. You're able to, do the digital newsletter that's got their face on it and their brand, if they're independently branded. It creates social media posts that they can go into their account and they can post it over. So it's an enterprise platform that's used basically within a corporate setting. Another great, I guess, industry that it would be applicable to would probably be real estate. When you have a real estate office that maybe has 100, even if it only has 20 or 10 or 20 different agents in there, but you're able to create the content for them that they're putting out there to basically promote themselves and their business. So basically an enterprise product. So that's what makes it different is that, yes, there's MailChimp out there where you can create one blast and then you can, post your newsletter or your content over. Our system makes it so that you can have multiple branded pieces of all the same articles. We just brought on a large IMO group, which is basically a marketing organization that is in the insurance industry. They have 20,000 appointed agents under them. So we're able to brand these to each one of their agents. They're able to have the agent's face on it, the agent's logo, but all the content inside of it is the same for every single one of them. So it's basically a mass production publication is what it is. And we have the digital component that gets, emailed out to the client list of the individual. We have the social media component where each individual article is able to post over to Facebook or LinkedIn. We do have the capability to also have Twitter. Instagram is another beast. We're not going there yet. And we also have a print component within it. So we're basically giving marketing departments the tools to help promote the business in the field for the people that are making them money. And
how big is your team? Tell us a little bit about them.
We have a very small team. There's 7 that basically work, keep things operating month after month. However, we have other people that we contract with. If we need additional writers, we can pull them in. And they're people that we've worked with for years. We will contract out graphic design work if needed when we're bringing on a large group. But for the most part, it's a very small team of about 7 people.
And so how many clients do you have? And you mentioned this 20,000, but you also mentioned one that's 2,500. So, do you work with the 5-person mom and pop shop, or are you at this point only working with the larger types of clients? Give us a flavor in terms of who your clients are and how many you actually have.
We are actually working more with the big corporations for the most part. If it's a mom and pop shop where they maybe have 5 advisors, if they're an independent RIA, that's not going to be probably a good mix with us. However, if it's a mom and pop shop under a broker-dealer and we're a vendor with that broker-dealer, absolutely. Because we generally get brought in through compliance and marketing is generally how we're introduced.
And that's how that's sort of how you come into some of the larger clients as your centers of influence are the people in the compliance department.
Correct. Like that main office that I said was our first in back years ago. They were under a broker-dealer, but they literally had, I believe it was 57 advisors that operated under that DBA brand. So that's kind of where we're different is that we write content specific to the group, meaning like specific to large RIA group or specific to the broker-dealer or specific to the insurance company. So our product
is each individual able to sort of, base it on them specifically? So obviously talk a little bit more about the group that is using the content and marketing so that you can tailor it specifically, or is it?
They're not able to specifically tailor it down like to what the advisor's looking for. It's basically specifically done at that corporate level where the marketing department will say, hey, we think that this is a good theme and we'd like to have, 2 articles this month on this and 2 articles on this. So we're not we don't work in that capacity where we have an advisor that, wants us to create a newsletter for them specific. Now, if they want to order content on their own and pay a fee for the content piece, great. We just don't deploy it through our software because we're doing a mass production on a mass level for a specific group. So, I guess there's a few thousand advisors that are using our stuff. We don't share content group to group, meaning this large IMO group, they have specific content that we write for them and we don't share it with another group. That's the big thing with content too, is some of our competitors, they may have, 500,000 people using their product, but they're all getting the same stuff every month. That doesn't really do anybody any good.
And so how do you measure that? How many clients do you have versus how many people are actually using your product? Yeah,
client-wise, I guess if you take a look at big companies, we'd probably have somewhere, broker-dealers probably somewhere in the line of 20. We have a lot of large RIA groups, but then we have specific insurance companies too. And I consider the insurance company one client. However, they have, 2,800.
Are you able to mention a few that you're currently working with?
I can mention probably one of them because we openly show their stuff, but we are on the list with Securities America. And we've been with them. They were our first company that basically broke us into this arena was Securities America. I would love for them to license our software and do it internally, but they don't. We just produce it for them and their advisors.
So in terms of licensing the technology, how have you been able to sort of manage in that aspect?
Well, as far as we have not created our own licensing paperwork. Obviously, we have an intellectual property attorney, but basically it's, if there's a company that's interested in licensing it, we set up a demo, visit with them, and then, hopefully from there they decide to license it, and we work with their corporate marketing team to get everything set up and onboard everybody and act as a resource. So I guess, sales-wise, it's been word of mouth. It's been direct contact. It's been going back to some of those relationships that we've had or people that inquired years back. A couple of years ago, we had an insurance company out on the East Coast that, hey, we like what you're producing. We want to use your software and use our content. And at the time, we didn't have it as a licensed product. And I declined.
And so do you have a patent on this?
We currently do not have a patent because every time we do an update, you have to redo the patent. So
sure.
we have not put a patent in place. We have, obviously branding, trademarked and things like that. But no, we have not done a patent at this point. And, our attorneys, basically said, every time that you update something, it changes the patent. And I can tell you that in 2018, we've already had 3 updates. So at some point, yes, it would probably be if we were anticipating a sale or some type of partnership arrangement with another company. And we've had a few conversations with some other companies that have interest in what we're doing. Like we have components developed that they don't. So, you never know. But, there's been times when we've had companies come to me and say, hey, they start a conversation and then it doesn't really go anywhere, and that happens.
In our wrap-up round, it's actually sponsored by banksmarter.com. It's all about exploring alternatives to traditional banking and balancing it with business, family, and life. So from digital assets to fintech to FinServe and empowering your family through education, more and more consumers are banking smarter, whether it be through credit unions or community banks. Again, head on over to banksmarter.com. That's BANKSMARTER.com. We've had guests on the show who have patent companies to basically not only help our startups, but of course working with those that are getting ready to sort of either sell their company or license their technology to others. So that's why I know there's a lot of people that are curious about that.
Yeah, and at that point, we would be doing that before we handed things off to them, and going through that process. But there's actually two separate law firms that we work with. One is more on, trademarking, intellectual property. We have another one that, if need be, litigation, mergers, that type of stuff.
And who do you work with in that regard?
Do you want me to say?
Sure, why not?
At the beginning, I worked with Interlink Law, which they have San Francisco, Scottsdale. I think they had Chicago at the time. I don't think they have Chicago anymore. Brad Bertaglio was very helpful. And then we've consulted with Gray Plant Moody, which is up here in the Midwest. And I guess the first office, that was more, getting the list of trademark and patent attorneys from, the Fed and going, all right, who's in my area? I mean, way back, that's how I found Brad. He was on a list, and I started, making phone calls and kind of doing interviewing, and I knew some companies that he had represented and some of the deals that he had done, which, in confidence, he had permission to say, yep, I've worked with this company. And then the other one came through basically a referral through a company in North Dakota. And a lot of people, I don't know if they're aware of this, but the second largest Microsoft campus happens to be in Fargo, North Dakota. And Great Plains Software was bought by Microsoft a few years back. Doug Burgum, who is the current governor of North Dakota, sold his company to Microsoft. And, Doug Burgum has funded a lot of different startups in that area and in that region. And I had a conversation with one of his team members and said, who do you recommend and who do you guys use? And that's how the second referral came through, was that it was a technology referral.
Your skills in building relationships and liking communication, as you talked about earlier, really comes in handy quite a bit.
It does. And for me, talking to someone about, hey, who took care of your licensing? Who do you recommend for intellectual property? And I'm talking to other people in the same space that are in the technology industry. And when I get a referral from them, great. I know that you're satisfied with the work and I know what you're doing business-wise, and absolutely, I'm going to use the same attorney. I do not recommend in skimping on costs on an attorney. I do not. Don't go to a mom and pop shop that specializes in everything. I mean, go specifically for what you're looking for. If it's intellectual property, trademarking, whatever it may be, you need to specifically seek out those professionals.
No, that's great advice. On the Listen Up show, we love books, and I have a book club over at mitchellchadrow.com/books, and every guest that comes on the show always recommends a book that means quite a bit to them. So can you recommend to the audience a book?
I guess this is early on my thinking and philosophy, Think and Grow Rich. That would probably be one that stands out in my mind as probably a beginning book about getting your mind in the right space before you decide to tackle things and working on yourself. There's been a ton of them that I've read throughout the years. That would probably be one of the very beginning ones is, partially, you're talking about manifesting your dreams and your desires, but there's a lot of work you got to put in yourself. Recently I went to a group here in the cities and, listened to someone speak named Sue Hawks, and her book's titled Chasing Perfection, Shatter the Illusion. And that has to do with getting rid of self-doubt, but also that you don't have to put up this facade of what you think the world wants you to look like or act like. It doesn't matter. Nobody's got a perfect life. how people may have this, this is who I am out in public persona, but this is who I really am behind the scenes. It doesn't matter. Be your authentic self.
That's right. I was just going to say it's called being real and being authentic, and that's so critically important in business and really in life, and that's who people want to really do business with. Can you leave our audience with 3 main takeaways?
3 main takeaways. I would say if you're going to start up something and you have this idea, investigate your competition before you start. I've seen, I've watched pitches of other people where they got this great product, but they don't realize that it already exists in the world, and there's 20 companies in the U.S. that do the same thing. So investigate. Another takeaway, I think, would be to get your mindset and your family life in order before you start the journey, because it can break up relationships, it can break up families, and it's a tough road. It's not easy. People only see the easy part and think, hey, anybody can be an entrepreneur. It's easy. The third one, I think, would be to, this is just one about life in general, but weed your garden, meaning there may be weeds that come up, and those people may be not the best people to have as part of your team, and you need to be selective. I don't recommend hiring family, and I don't recommend hiring friends, but hire people that can get the job done and have the skill set.
No, that's really awesome, Teresa. We really appreciate it. You mentioned about really enjoying communicating, and people want to obviously communicate with you and stay in touch. How are they going to do that?
Honestly, I would say, if you want to make a connection, do it through LinkedIn, which is how you and I connected. I think LinkedIn is a great space to be. I don't recommend soliciting people through LinkedIn, but I know I've made referrals to people through LinkedIn, connected people, and always be a connector, I think, is very important. But I guess, if you're looking at it from product standpoint or licensing, you can reach out to me through LinkedIn or through our website, which is freshmerge.com. I guess go from there.
And everybody's going to be able to get the show notes of this show back at mitchellchadro.com/show 072. And, of course, they'll be able to get this show on iTunes back at mitchellchadro.com/iTunes. Subscribe, provide a review. It'll take 2 minutes. It really helps other people find the show, and it really does support our guests. We're on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Overcast FM. So, again, we'd really like to thank you so much, Teresa, for all your time. We've really enjoyed the conversation, and we're really looking forward to hearing more about the next steps in your journey with the business.
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it.
Hey, you take care. Be good now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Until next time, my trusted friends. Again, sign up back at my website for the latest podcasts, more articles, and send me an email about your business startup, and I'm happy to respond back at mitchellchadro.com/sign up. Thank you again, and I look forward to our next show.